So obviously there has been so much backlash to Trump's policy to separate children from parents on both the right side and the left side, Democrats, Republicans, even religious figures, both conservative and liberal, have spoken out against it. All four living former first ladies have spoken out against it. The Pope has spoken out against it. So I guess Trump figured it was bad for his ratings, and it was about time that he did something about it. Now, this was just a massive stopgag. The order that he passed doesn't mean that the immigration atrocities are going to stop from happening. And there's so many things wrong, so many catches in this as well. So he ordered the end of the family separation policy on Wednesday. He signed an executive order to end that, and that had been going on for 6 weeks, the practice of separating children from parents. And just to recap that real quick, it's because of his zero tolerance policy, where now anyone who crosses the border illegally is being sentenced, and they have to go through a process of being tried as a criminal, in which case, because of that, they're having their children removed from them. So it is his zero tolerance policy that is preventing, or that is, making that happen. Now, this is what he said: we're going to have strong, very strong borders, but we're going to keep the families together. He said just before signing the executive order. He said, I don't like the sight or the feeling of families being separated. I'm sorry, that's total bullshit. You don't give a shit, and neither does your daughter, who is an ambassador to women and children. The only thing you care about is your image and your ratings, and the only thing your daughter cares about is her brand and her future, as she wants to be a politician for many years to come. That's the only reason why the two of you did anything about it, because of all the pressure you've gotten and the backlash. So sorry about your tiny, tiny little base who still thinks that you should be separating children from their parents, because apparently they are pissed off. But that's a very small fraction, because unbelievably, many of the Republicans did think that this was very cruel, in which it was, but it doesn't mean that things are fixed. So his policy of separating children from parents, I already said that. Anyways, his directive seeks to keep families together in detention. But here's the problem with that. There is a 21-year-old court settlement known as the Flores Agreement that says the federal government can hold immigrant minors no longer than 20 days. Immigration cases typically go much longer than 20 days. So he has that problem to deal with. He didn't mention that yesterday when he signed the new, when he signed the papers in the Oval Office. He didn't mention that. Well, today it must have occurred to him sometime between then and now that, yes, the Flores Agreement would prevent this from actually working. So what did he do? Today, the administration asked the federal court of Los Angeles that oversees the Flores settlement essentially to overturn it, allowing the government to detain families. And here's the big part: allowing the government to detain families indefinitely. Okay? So he signs this paper. Now he says he wants to keep the families together, but the catch to that is he has to, the courts have to dismiss this Flores Agreement. And if they do, that means that these migrant families can be held by the U.S. government wherever they want them to be, detention centers, prisons, indefinitely. So we've traded something absolutely horrific for something absolutely horrific. But nobody really is paying attention to the fact that if this goes through and the federal court overturns the Flores Agreement, these families have no protection against being held indefinitely by the U.S. government. So again, when I was reporting about this 2 days ago, I talked about the industrial prison complex and private prisons and how much the private prisons have to profit from this because of the new facilities that have been set up, the detention centers to hold the children. The Geo Group owns a good portion of them. The Geo Group is a private prison company. And they're calling these detention centers non-for-profit, but as one of the whistleblowers who quit from one of these detention centers has been reporting, the CEO of the detention center made $1 million. So non-for-profit, my ass. And if the Geo Group owns them, there is a lot of profit being made from these detention centers. So now, as I just said, if the Flores Agreement is overturned by the court, these families can be held indefinitely, and the Geo Group's going to rake in the money, and the Geo Group, who contributes to the, mostly Republican politicians, including Donald Trump, over 700,000 already this year, 1 million in 2016, they're going to continue to pay the politicians. And like I reported before, just for one of the new detention centers, it's costing taxpayers $44 million. So we're paying for these families to be held indefinitely in detention centers owned by private prisons, and the private prisons are paying the politicians, and the circle continues, and this is not a good thing. Yes, it is a good thing to reunite the families. Of course it is, but different policies have to be worked out regarding that because it doesn't benefit them to be held indefinitely. So the administration officials called the order a stopgap measure and refused to say what they would do with the migrant children in 3 weeks should they fail to pass the legislation through Congress. So already they don't know what the shit they're doing, and they have absolutely no plans whatsoever. Trump just decides to say something and sign a paper, and everybody scurries to then make it happen and figure out legally how to make it work. Because they're saying at this point, so yeah, like if within the Flores Agreement says they have 20 days, they have to release the children. Well, if within 20 days we don't have another legislation that gets passed through Congress, then we have no idea what we're going to do or where the children will go. But we said we would keep them with their parents. So what the hell is that? You know? Great. Makes lots of sense. Let's just throw something up in the air and see where it lands. The administration also has no plans and cannot answer questions about what they're planning to do with the children that they already have in detention centers as far as reuniting them with their families. So the current children that are being held in detention centers, 25,000 right now, the administration just has no idea what they're going to do with them or how to reunite them with their families that they've separated them from recently. So hot mess 101. Now, here's something really, really scary. Yeah, love and peace to all. I'm all about it. So yeah, here's something very, very scary. In the background, as Trump's saying, we are going to reunite these children with their families, there's also something in the works with the Pentagon to house 20,000 children on military bases. This just came out. We're not talking 2,500. I didn't misspeak. 20,000 children. So, a notification to Congress is to be, a notification to Congress says that the Pentagon needs to be prepared and to be preparing to have capacity to house 20,000 children. The military is getting involved with immigration, and which completely, so Trump's pulling this, I'm a hero, I deserve a Nobel Peace Prize, my daughter Ivanka tweeted about children today, Melania went down to see children and she wore a green shirt that says, I don't care. What did her shirt say? I'll talk about it later. Oh, we're love, peace, and Trump. Love, peace, and Trump. Meanwhile, Pentagon, get ready to house 20,000 people, but I'm not going to say that in my press conference. So the Pentagon, the Department of Health and Human Services, they are preparing to house 20,000 children on military bases. There are 4 military bases that they are serving to house the children. James Mattis already said that he's ready to meet any request from the HHS on this issue. 20 defense attorneys have been earmarked to go over to the Justice Department and handle immigration cases. So in the background of all this love, peace, and Trump and Ivanka, we have the friggin' military getting involved. Military police, military bases being readied for children. But he didn't talk about that in his press conference, did he?